Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome to the AMA, the Ask Me Anything for our governor candidate, Mark Tippetts. I'm your host, Darren Pollock, and this hour or so, we will be taking questions from the audience through Facebook and Twitter. We will be fielding these questions, letting Mark talk to y'all about his views, how he feels, and with that, then I'd like to quickly let Mark introduce himself.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Mark Tippetts. Just a little bit about myself. I am the Libertarian candidate for governor. I hope that you will consider me this coming November. I was born and raised in Mexico. I have a background in law and business administration. I'm an international legal and business consultant. I am bilingual and bicultural, and I understand the issues of Texas as good as anybody, or perhaps better, as I have been a permanent resident of Texas for over 25 years. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Mark, with that, we have our first question, which is, in what ways will being a Libertarian governor be an advantage to the citizens of Texas that the other candidates cannot offer?
In being the Libertarian candidate, a third-party candidate, it offers stability and balance. Actually, it offers both parties the ability to where they no longer are directly fighting each other. They are actually doing the work that they are elected to do, which is to represent their constituencies in the best way that they know how. And as a Libertarian governor, I would be able to view those different points of view and be able to offer a more balanced mediation of the representation offered to all Texans, not just Republican or not just Democrat, but all Texans, independents, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, and all Texans.
That sounds great. I mean, yeah, I mean, being neither a Republican or a Democrat kind of takes those party lines out of it and makes that a heck of a lot easier. So I think that would be an excellent thing. Next question we had up was, some have been critical of the fact that you were born in Mexico and that you still have some personal and business ties with our neighbors to the south. So what effects and benefits do you feel your upbringing in Mexico brings to the table?
And I get that. I get that question. I understand that question, and I understand where it's coming from. When we have the two-party system, or as we like to call it, the duopoly, throwing hatred and fear-mongering on both sides as to what Mexico is or what Mexico is not, then we wind up with a very narrow-minded view of our neighbor to the south. And you are correct. I was born in Mexico. I have family in Mexico. I have business in Mexico on both sides, which actually gives me an advantage over Beto O'Rourke or Governor Abbott, because being bicultural and bilingual, I get it. I understand the issues from both sides, and I will be able, by understanding the issues and understanding the culture, I will be able to work most effectively and most efficiently with our neighbors to the south in addressing the issues that affect us on both sides of the border.
Sounds excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think that having the fact that we share a border with another nation is quite important to understand that. And I think we are long overdue with a leader that understands that. So totally agree with that.
It is. It's very, very important that we understand that, because it covers a big array of issues, from immigration to the war on drugs to incarceration to it covers the biggest gamut of issues that we have here in the state. And Beto O'Rourke may claim that he speaks Spanish, and grant it to him. He does speak Spanish, but he's not bilingual and bicultural. He does not understand truly the issues. He was, as a rich kid, was raised with a Latino nanny, which gave him his name of Beto. And Greg Abbott doesn't even try. He doesn't even profess to understand the issues coming from the South.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely was big on the border. And I think he supported the border wall too. So yeah, absolutely. Greg Abbott did. I mean, so we have another question from Jennifer via Facebook. She asks, Mark, do you support school choice programs like those that have been implemented in Arizona?
The short answer is absolutely. And this is one of those issues that I, as a libertarian, and we as the Libertarian Party can lead on. The Democrats openly state that they oppose with every fiber of their being anything but public education. And they want more and more money for public education and forcing all of our children to be educated in the public system. In Texas, we have to understand one thing. Our Constitution mandates that the state provide for an efficient and free education. However, there is nothing in the Constitution that states how that education is to be provided for. And it does not mandate that Texas citizens be educated by the state. But yet the state still has the obligation to provide for that education. And school choice is absolutely the best way to provide for that education, because along with the education, we have to also see the other issues that go along with it. And I apologize if I'm long-winded on this, but we have to view, along with the public school systems, some of the entrapments and some of the other issues that we are faced with, such as school security. By offering school choice, the parents are then empowered to put their children in the schools that not only best suit the curriculum needs of their students, of their children, which the parents know better than anybody. Washington can't know what is best for our kids, and most certainly the governor's mansion can't either. But by offering school choice, we empower the parents so that they can then choose where to send their children to the best schools that they like and the safest schools that they choose for their children.
Yeah, in regards to like Uvalde now, it sure is seems like a big thing to address the security issue. So yeah, sounds great. So we have another question. This is from Jake Schultz on Facebook. He asked, "What do you feel is the most important issue, or a couple of issues, if you can't choose just one, facing the state currently?"
There are a few, but I think we did address one, which is school choice. And one thing about school choice is one of the others is the mandates and executive overreach, which I'll get to that next. But one thing about the school choice is every election cycle that I can remember, the Republicans have been promising or tout school choice as one of their issues. They always do it. And they have controlled the state for over 2 decades, and they have yet to pass school choice. What would make us believe that they are going to do it now? It is something that they use as a political tool. The other issue, or at least one other issue, is the executive overreach, the mask mandates, the shutdowns, the lockups, the curfews. Greg Abbott would have us believe that he has always been against the mandates. He would have us believe that the mandates are unconstitutional. I won't even mention Beto O'Rourke, or shall I say Robert Francis O'Rourke. His position is they would want more mandates, to the point that the Democrats are fighting in the federal courts and the Supreme Court. Not that they are not having the mandates, but they want to have them in their back pocket so they could use them at any time. But Governor Abbott, when there was a Republican president, he issued mask mandates, curfews, business shutdowns. He issued all those orders. He would like us to forget that, and like us to believe that he didn't. But what about all the businesses that he ruined, all the lives that he ruined, and with all the political stunts that he pulls that are costing Texans millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars, and blocking our roads and blocking our produce flow, we've got to stop that.
Sounds great. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. Sounds good, Mark. Guess we'll see if we got another. Oh, we do have another question. This is from Texas Gold on Facebook. They ask, speaking of Uvalde, a bunch of us from the Libertarian Party of Texas and then some are planning something there. Will you come, Mark?
The Uvalde incident is something that is very, very tragic. I cannot offer a blank statement that yes, I will go. If it is something that is done in good taste, if it is something, but like Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke, they actually tried to gain, I think it backfires on them, but each one of them tried to gain political clout on the suffering of individuals. I refuse to do that. I was criticized a lot for not going to Uvalde. I was criticized a lot for not being more vocal about it. But what can you really say that will help those individuals? If there is something that will be as a support or help or comfort, yes, absolutely, I'll be there.
That sounds good. I mean, it makes sense that you kind of want to know what the whole purpose of the trip is and probably when it is and whatnot. But yeah, that's a good question. We have a question from James Holland on Facebook, and he asks, "What is your position on marijuana legalization in Texas, and what would you do as governor to advance policy in whichever direction?"
The whole idea of this war on drugs, it goes quite deep. It goes to it takes so much energy, effort, money, resources to incarcerate people and hold them incarcerated and prosecute them, and just for the consumption of a plant, something that harms nobody. There is no victim in the consumption of the marijuana plant. Some people have asked me, well, but what if they commit crimes while they're under the influence? Well, you prosecute them for those crimes, just like you would prosecute somebody who is under the influence of alcohol. You don't prosecute them for the consumption of alcohol itself. You prosecute them for the crimes they commit while under the influence. The same would happen with marijuana legalization. And the benefits from marijuana is way outweigh the detriments. If people will get over what I call the reefer madness, it sounds scary. I get it. It does sound scary, but it is it's a fallacy. It is a false notion and a false perception that marijuana leads to other major drugs. I have not seen it. I have yet to see a study, a viable, true study, that other than some religious base, something that says, oh yeah, it leads to this or that or the other. But we have to stop prosecuting individuals, and let's be honest with each other. The war on drugs and the war on marijuana is a direct war with the minorities, the African American communities, the Latino communities, because if you look around in the jails and in the hundreds of thousands of people that are incarcerated, they're all African American and Latinos. That's where we are wasting a lot of our energies and efforts.
Yeah, I mean, the whole war against a plant just seems so ridiculous when you really think about it. And like you were saying, as far as the racist aspect of marijuana criminalization was in the first place, if you look back at that, and the whole reefer madness and all that propaganda was definitely aimed at the minority communities. I just had a quick question as a follow-up to that, Mark, real quickly. Do you believe that it should be legalized and regulated, or do you feel like a full decriminalization of marijuana would be the right aspect to go to, where it was absolutely not even regulated whatsoever?
My research and view on this is, I don't know when we surrendered our sovereignty to the government to be overlords, to be able to dictate what we can and cannot consume as far as that. I will take the legalization. I will take either one, but it should not have been illegal to begin with. If we actually look at it, nowhere did we give the government, federal or state, the right to dictate what we can or cannot consume. It is no different than consuming a beer. It is absolutely no different than eating a steak. And I know people are saying that's a far-fetch. However, it really is no different. The government is trying to take our sovereignty and tell us what we can or cannot consume. And it shouldn't be there. But to answer your question, I would take either one.
I like that answer. Yeah, I would prefer a full decriminalization myself, but yeah, absolutely. Whatever we can get to get more liberty. So we have a question from Zach Stafford on Facebook, and he asked, what is your plan to help the addiction recovery community?
And I am going to do a leap of faith here, a leap of assumption, and say that the addiction that he is referring to, and I hope I am not putting words in his mouth, is the opioid addiction and the other drug addictions. One of the best things you can do to combat that is legalize marijuana. A lot of people say marijuana is a gateway drug, and I agree, but it's a gateway drug off of addiction, off of some of these extremely powerful painkillers, and most of those addictions are actually legal addictions. They obtain those opioids legally until they cannot obtain them legally anymore, and they are given absolutely no alternatives to get off of that addiction, where marijuana has been proven to be a gateway off of addiction of the harder opioids.
Yeah, so Zach followed up with, he was just talking in general drug addiction. Like, do you have a plan basically to do that? I mean, yeah, the opioid thing is definitely a crisis for sure.
I have yet to see, and yes, the drug addiction is something that needs to be, social programs need to be in place to help in that, to offer assistance in that. And when I say social programs, I'm not talking about government social programs. I'm talking about nonprofit organizations. And as governor, I will help any organization get established. I will put the office at their disposal to help them establish nonprofit organizations to help people combat drug addiction, like AA. There are many other organizations, and there are many organizations out there that help with drug addiction. I think one of the big problems too is identifying it, and by decriminalizing it, a lot of people are afraid to admit to their drug addiction, and a lot of people are afraid to get help to their drug addiction because they have to basically go and confess that they're a criminal. And this should not be that way. They should be able to seek help without the fear of prosecution.
Yeah, excellent. Zach actually followed up with that, asking if you would decriminalize all drugs, but it seems like you answered that already. Looks like we have another question come up from RJ Pace, at RJ Pace. I guess it's a Twitter question, which someone was asking for more Twitter questions. But he asked, would you stop at legalizing only marijuana or work towards legalizing more?
Like I say, I would consider a major success with the decriminalization or legalizing marijuana. Obviously, there's a lot of the issues that face us now that we are trying to correct, and we are trying to bring us back to at least a constitutionality of everything. And it has taken us 200 years to get this messed up. I don't profess that I can wave a magic wand and get it straightened up in my lifetime at all, or perhaps not even in my children's lifetime. But if we do not establish the Northern Stars, our pointing guidelines, and start moving towards that, we will never get there. It's like the first step towards getting off of drug addiction is admitting you have a problem. And that is the first step to correcting all of the problems that face us. I believe that the first step is admitting that we have a massive problem in this country, and it is called, in my humble opinion, it's called the duopoly. It is called the red and blue that keep pulling us further and further apart, making enemies out of each other. For crying out loud, we're all Texans, we're all Americans, red or blue. It is time that the libertarians point this out, show this, and start tearing down those walls of you're with me or you're against me, you hate me, we gotta hate him, we gotta fight to not let him win. Nobody's really, in the past elections of memory, nobody has ever really voted for the individual they want in office. Most of the votes are against somebody else. They're voting for the lesser, in their mind, the lesser of two evils. We have to stop that.
Excellent. Yeah, this looks like we've answered several questions there for the audience. So we have another one come up on Twitter at Vote Texas Gold asks, we're seeing ads everywhere for your opponents. Where are yours, and how can we get the message on the airwaves?
That is a good question. I will tell you why we see ads for Beto O'Rourke and Greg Abbott all over the airways. Number one, they control the airways. But when you have $50 million to run a campaign, if I had 50 million, let me rephrase that. If I had $1 million to run a campaign, I could run a campaign that would give Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke a run for their money. But when you are trying to, with nothing but volunteers and a budget of, $20,000 maybe, if we're lucky, 30 at the end of the day, there is a lot of things you can't do. A TV ad spot, for instance, a 30-second primetime TV spot, that would blow our entire budget for our entire campaign. Where Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke, it's nothing. All they do is put out another ad. Oh, you need to donate to us, because if not, they are going to take your guns, or if not, they are going to take your freedoms. And they just try to scare everybody. And we try to offer a voice of calm amongst the storm, and point out realities, not 15-second sound bites.
So how many super PACs do you have in your, I'm sorry, Mark, how many super PACs do you have in your pocket?
Well, let me start counting them. None. Oh.
None, right. Yeah, so if anybody really wants to ask help with that question that was asked, we can go to markforgov.com/donate and definitely help with money, because Mark sure could use it for this campaign. So I believe we have another question coming up here, which is from Jennifer again. She asked, what would you do to give relief to homeowners who are paying very high property taxes?
The answer to the question is going to sound self-serving, because I pay exorbitant property taxes. It is absolutely ridiculous. We need to work towards, and let's keep this in mind. We're Texans. We're a smart bunch of people. Kennedy said, we want to put somebody on the moon and bring him back safely in this decade. And nobody in their mind had any idea how to do it. So when I say we need to take and eliminate property taxes, I don't care if people say, oh, well, how do we do this? What do we do? We're Texans. We're smart enough to figure it out. And a lot of people say, what do we replace it with? Where we don't need to, we don't replace it. But this is an issue that we must address. Right from the left, from every side, we must address this. It is unconscionable that an individual pays taxes all their life, and pays on their house all their life, retires, and can never claim that they own their property. They are indentured servants to the government to pay rent on a piece of property that they, even if it's paid off, they still must continue to pay on that. We must eliminate the property tax.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I mean, renting your house for your entire life seems ridiculous to me as well. So we have another question from Aaron Goss here on Facebook. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just follow up on that too, by saying also that's one of those issues that we're not going to get there overnight. But at bare minimum, once somebody is retired and ceases to be a breadwinner or a moneymaker and retires on his piece of property, he should no longer have to pay taxes on it. That at a bare minimum, if I could achieve my first office in my first term in office, it would be a tremendous success.
I agree. That sounds wonderful. So we have a question from Aaron Goss on Facebook, and he asks, what are your plans to make ERCOT more stable for both heat and cold going forward, so we don't have a repeat of 2021? I believe he means the snowpocalypse.
The snowpocalypse that I went through.
Yeah.
I happen to know a little bit about the electric generation and the electricity, the grids. I built a hydroelectric plant in Belize, Central America, which I still own. You need to get the government out of it first and foremost. You need to eliminate the government involvement in our energy. And it must be, it has to be private. If you are not, after the whole mess, nobody was ever held accountable. Why? You can't hold the government accountable, but you can hold private entities accountable. If this would have happened under the watch of a private entity, of a private corporation, do you know how many lawsuits they would be facing right now? How many lawsuits are ERCOT or the governor facing? Zero. Why? Because you can't. It has to be regulated, it has to be ran by the generators, the transmitters, and the distributors. And this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. It's not just one, even though it's a power grid, if you want to look at it that way, but it is comprised in three different components. It is the generation aspect, the transmission aspect, and the distribution. The distribution's at local, the transmissions is throughout the state, and the generation is in different areas. And it takes those private entities working together to make sure that that our lines are energized, whether it's in cold weather or hot weather. But as long as we have ERCOT or the government involved, there will be an scapegoat that nobody can do anything about.
So do you think that subsidies for wind and solar were a good idea, a bad idea? How do you feel about those?
Well, I guess it depends on who you are. There is a Latin phrase called cui bono. And basically is what that means is who benefits. And if you look at the wind and solar and everything that we passed, I always say cui bono. And the ones who benefited were the people putting it in. Because here's the thing. Even though our tax dollars subsidized it, and I won't get into the details or how much or whatever, tax dollars subsidized it, but the owners got all the generation. And then there is absolutely no incentive. Let me put it this way, in a nutshell, wind and solar without government subsidy is not efficient. You cannot generate it cheap enough. The one thing that we must also take the boogeyman word out of, and we must pursue, is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy can set us independent. There are more people killed in coal mines a year than has ever been killed in nuclear disasters. I'm talking energy nuclear disasters. I'm not talking about some submarine at the bottom of the ocean. I'm talking about nuclear power plants. And people point to, yeah, what about, this plant and that plant? Yeah, tell me how many people were actually killed because of it. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
We have learned a lot. So
yeah,
wind and solar are never, even though I like wind and solar, there is a place for wind and solar, and wherever a company can put one together and market the energy profitable for themselves without government subsidies, I back that, I support that, but not with government subsidies.
Yeah, I do like the thought of more nuclear power generation, since we only have 2 plants in the state of Texas. It seems like that would be the low hanging fruit to shoot for. So I definitely like that idea. So we have another question from Facebook. Tara Kelly asks, do you have a plan to release prisoners in Texas who are already incarcerated for nonviolent drug offenses? And this is something that the governor definitely could do, right?
This is something that it's not just wave a magic wand, obviously. It has to be done in coordination with the parole board. and on the recommendation of the parole board. I believe I'm correct there. But yes, I will do everything in my power to release individuals that are there for victimless crimes. And most of them are there for consumption of marijuana. So yes, I would do everything in my power to review and release the individuals that are there for victimless crimes.
Sounds great. I think that should be something that all libertarians could get behind. So it looks like we have another question from Zach Stafford, follow up on Facebook, and he asks, so how would you promote a transition to nuclear energy?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a transition. We already have nuclear energy. It would be just addition to that, okay? And the thing that we have to do is Texas has to demand that the Federal Department of Energy cease and desist. The Federal Department of Energy is unconstitutional. The former governor, who, when his bid for president, said he would get rid of the Department of Energy, the next Republican president there appointed him, without naming names, as the Secretary of Energy, rather than getting rid of the Department of Energy. Texas is being dictated to by the federal government on more ways than Texas agreed to. And Texas is the only, and I will probably at my own peril venture down this rabbit hole, but Texas is the only state that can truly bring the federal government to its senses. Why? Because Texas joined the Union via treaty. Texas was not usurped unto the Union or was not a territory like the rest of the states. Texas joined the Union via treaty, and Texas can demand that the federal government stop intruding in Texas's affairs according to the treaty documents.
Yeah, that was a funny response there with the DOE getting rid of it, and former Governor Goodhair, as he was sometimes referred to as.
Exactly.
So we have another question. This one is from Nolan Schmidt on Facebook, and he asks, would it be possible to replace the flawed property taxes with an alternative that would be more beneficial for Texas and its citizens?
Thanks, Nolan. Yes, it would be beneficial. It would be better. I have always been a proponent of a straight sales tax, what a lot of people have called a fair tax. In that way, if you are a member of society, productive member of society, the fact that you consume anything, your taxes are automatically paid. Instead of increase this whole idea, we now have a deficit reduction act that, I mean, it only cost us how many trillions, and I don't know whether trillions, but how many hundreds of billions of dollars, and it increased our IRS by $80 billion and 87,000 more agents. Wouldn't it seem to anybody listening, wouldn't it seem easier to restructure the tax code than to hire an army and arm them literally to enforce an outdated, antiquated tax code only because it benefits the two parties? Surely we can do better than that. And if we can put a man on the moon, surely we can come up with a better tax code than that. And I think that if we had a fair tax, that could take and get rid of all of the other taxes that are so burdensome.
Sounds great. Yeah. I think that's something that libertarians can definitely get behind. I think most Texans can definitely get behind that because I think people are just tired of paying property taxes. It's definitely hard on the public. So we've got another question now. This is on Facebook from James Holland. He asked, "What's your opinion of the TABC, Texas Alcohol Board of Control, I think, and alcohol blue laws? Like, what if any reforms would you support regarding them? Would you consider abolishing the TABC?"
This, I guess I can answer that with pretty much abolishing any government entity. Oh, absolutely, I would consider it. But we have these government entities that their only job there is to stay relevant. And so they create these problems to try to stay relevant. Why? It's the same reason that I oppose government-ran social programs. It is, I had a conversation with a couple of young ladies who were very upset that the Libertarians wanted to do away, Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, that they were very upset that they were misled to believe that Libertarians wanted to do away with all social programs. And I told them, I said, oh, absolutely not. Libertarians want more social programs. Libertarians are for volunteerism. We want more social programs. We just don't want the federal government or the state government to run those social programs. Why? Because, and I challenge them. Show me one, not only a social program, any program that the government runs. Just show me one that they run efficiently, and I will withdraw my statement. And I have yet to find one program that the government can run more efficiently than the private sector can. Why? They can't. Because their number one job is to stay relevant. Their number one job is to make sure that everyone who works there has a good salary, retirement benefit, health plans. They will look at the Congress. They have their own health plans, totally different than anyone else. So tell me if they could possibly, run something efficiently. They can't. Where all possible, and this is the libertarian in me coming out, wherever possible, I want to reduce and get rid of government. It's nothing more than intrusion in our lives and our liberties.
I have to agree with that. Absolutely. I like the fact that Kevin Hale popped in here and said to, yes, please, Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, not needed. I happen to know he runs a bar, so I'm sure he's very, very familiar with the TABC and all their antics that they pull, all their silly rules.
Exactly. Hey, Kevin. Shout out to Kevin Hale.
Yeah. So we have a new question here, and it's what's your view on Bitcoin? Pretty simple.
It's pretty simple, and it's my view on. I guess it's my view on barter. I believe we should be able to buy and sell and trade in whatever means we choose fit. This is going to sound, ridiculous, but if I have silver and I want to buy something from you, or if I have Bitcoin, or if I have, there's a bunch of different ways to barter. I mean, we used to trade for chickens or rice or beans, or I still remember at a time, that we did barter. We traded lumber, we traded grain, we traded cattle, we traded for other things. So, I mean, if it's, do I wholeheartedly, I don't own Bitcoin, and I can't really profess to say that I understand the Bitcoin, but I believe that anybody should be able to conduct business and with whatever means of barter they, including chickens, as Kevin Hale says.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I don't own any Bitcoin myself, but yeah, I'm all for it. I think that sounds wonderful. People should have more choices than just the U.S. dollar. I mean, other nations should have better choices than just the U.S. dollar, honestly. Okay, now we have a big question. What is your view on abortion? That's a sticky one.
Well, it can be, and it can be very, very. I understand passionate views on both sides of the argument. I am asked a lot of times, and most of the time, I get the question, not necessarily this way. I appreciate the way the question was asked. A lot of times I get the question, are you a pro baby killer, or are you against women? And I usually with a lot of anger there, and I do get that. But here's my view on that particular issue. I am a father of 6. I have 6 children. I have 7 grandchildren. And to me personally, there's absolutely nothing more precious than life. I've held it in my hands. I've seen it from creation to completion. I know life. I've seen death. And so to me, there's nothing more precious than life. But 4 of my children are girls. And I do not believe that anybody has a right to tell them what they can or cannot do with their body. That is a conscious choice of theirs. It's between them, their God, their conscience, their not God, whatever they want. It is a moral issue. And I do not believe that our legislative bodies have the right to legislate morality. Like I say, it's a moral issue. And I think everybody can agree with me that the majority of our legislators are men. And I do not believe that somebody has a right to legislate or pass laws over something that they themselves would never, ever have to face. I do not believe a bunch of men have the right to pass judgment or legislation over something that they will never, ever, a decision that they would never, ever be faced with. By default, they would never be able to violate anything like that. So that's my view on it. A lot of people say, well, you try to have it both ways. And I say, no, I don't try to have it both ways. I do have it both ways. So I do understand pro-life people. I'm a pro-life person, but I cannot make the moral decision, and I cannot legislate morality for other people, because just between you and I, Darren, your morals and my morals are totally different. I mean, my morals and my wife's morals are different. All of our moralities are different, and nobody has a right. Now, if somebody wishes to form a religion in which they believe it's illegal, that's fine, and the Constitution protects that. But as a government that protects religious rights, that protects diversity, we cannot legislate one group of people's morality on everybody else.
Excellent. It sounds just like what the Texas Libertarian platform still says. The national platform removed it, but yeah, that sounds exactly like right up that alley. So excellent. I think we have another question now. Another question about the power grid. That seems to be a popular one. So the Public Utilities Commission, the PUC, which oversees ERCOT, the Energy Reliability Commission of Texas, has its benefits, but it also has its flaws. The major flaw is that the board is handpicked by the governor. How would you address that flaw as governor?
And I am going to base this on the idea that I would not be able to get rid of ERCOT. I would only be able to replace the people there. If memory serves, the people that were appointed to ERCOT had zero knowledge of energy. They had zero knowledge of a grid. They had zero knowledge of what it took to run a grid. And if I had to keep ERCOT, I would replace the people with knowledgeable individuals that know about generation, transmission, and distribution, that knows the fail-safes, that knows what margins have to be maintained, that know the background of it, that know what they're talking about, not just some major donor person who decided that I should appoint their great-great-grandson or something like that to those positions. Most of the people at ERCOT had no clue what the heck was going on. Privatizing it would be obviously the best way to go. But as you know, or at least as I know, it is not something that it's a dictatorship, the governorship. It is something that has its limitations, which this governor seems to think it doesn't. He seems to think that he can do mandates and executive orders, which he is taking a playbook from the federal level, which it doesn't make it right. It's still wrong. And we have to stop it before we can turn it around.
Excellent, Mark. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Exactly. If it could be privatized, that'd be outstanding. But yeah, I don't know if that's within the purview of the governorship or not. We have another question from Aaron Goss again, and he's asking, how do you get your news and stay informed? What are some of your favorite sources for information?
Yeah, I can tell you, whenever I want to really get my blood boiling, I just turn on the TV and switch back and forth between Fox and CNN. You'd swear they're being broadcasted from two different planets, or you'd swear at least they were point of views of two different countries that hated each other and had nothing to do with each other. I try to stay informed. I like to read a lot. When an issue comes up, I have a bunch of different pop-up stuff that from everything from conspiracy theorist people, to all kinds of different stuff. I stay away from Alex Jones though, but no, I get it from various different sources, and I believe none of it. I research the different issues to get to the bottom of it, because I mean, take the Uvalde for instance. We still don't know what happened, and everybody's still pointing fingers. And so, there's several different sources out there that claim to be non-biased, but if you read between the lines, you see it a little bit. I do the Epic Times, I different things like that, but I very seldom go into the news without that interests me, that I don't do independent research on it myself.
Sounds great. Oh, one of my favorites was Russia Today, but that's banned now, so can't get that anymore. Yeah. All right, so here's a real tough question. Jeff Miller asks, what's the best Star Wars movie, and why is it The Empire Strikes Back? And I'll tell you why. It's because Tauntauns. My opinion.
The best Star Wars movie has got to be the first one, which is what, Episode 6?
A New Hope. A New Hope, yeah.
No. The original.
Oh, the original. Oh, the number. Oh, okay.
The very, very first original. When that came out, I was kind of depressed because I had tickets to go see Elvis Presley, and he died. before my ticket. And I was kind of in 77. And I walked in because this was before they had previews and all this stuff. They just had posters. And so I saw a sign, Star Wars. And I thought it was something like, A Star is Born, but fighting against each other, And so I walked in and I was so impressed. I walked out, bought another ticket, walked back in, and then I immediately signed up to learn how to fly an airplane. So,
oh wow,
it's got to be the first one.
Awesome, cool. Okay, we have another question. Not sure who it's from, but the question is, what can Texans do to help libertarians on the ballot?
To help to help keep libertarians on the ballot.
Help keep. I'm sorry, I misread that. Yeah, help keep libertarians on the ballot. That's correct.
The simple answer is vote libertarian. Support the Libertarian Party. Here is one of the issues of the duopoly, and I know we're probably running out of time, but I know that the Democrats and Republicans can work together because they work together very, very well, very hand in hand when it comes to keeping libertarians off the ballot. They passed law after law aimed, as the judges have put it themselves, these laws are clearly aimed to keep third parties off the ballot. And it's done by the established parties. They do it because they know that it costs them nothing, and we have to spend tens of thousands of dollars fighting these laws. The last law that they passed was that the libertarians, that anybody who wished to be, and I'll take me for an example, anybody who wished to run for governor had to pay a filing fee of $3,750. And that was to be considered by your own party. Now, most people will say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, here's what's wrong with that, is libertarians benefited nothing from that filing fee. The Republicans and the Democrats, the filing fee, they paid the filing fee directly to their party headquarters. The Libertarians paid their filing fee to the Secretary of State, which then the Secretary of State turned around and uses those fees to help fund the primaries. And the Libertarians are left funding their own convention because we elect via convention. We do not get any of those funds, and they try to say that that is fair. They use all these tricks to keep us off the ballot, to try, to the extent that one of the Republicans said that he believed it was a dereliction of duty from the Republican Party. It was their dereliction of duty for not getting us kicked off and kept off the ballot permanently. They believe that it is a God-given right, that they are entitled to be the only two parties that Texans or anybody has a right to listen to. And that is one of the things that I want to do more than anything else, is to let Texans know they have choices. They do have choices, and their vote does count at the ballot, and they do not have to vote against the worst of two evils or for the better of two evils. They can vote their conscience, and they can vote libertarian or other independents that are out there.
Absolutely, yeah. The filing fee just doesn't make any sense to me either, and it just seems terrible that they can even put that out with a straight face. But yeah, it's there. It's part of our system now, unfortunately. Also, just wanted to remind everyone, yeah, the legal fund was up there just a second ago. That's something that the Libertarian Party is actually fighting, is these ridiculous ballot requirements that we are up against. So if you feel inclined, please help with that. We have to pay lawyers to try to fight this issue. And also, don't forget that Mark could definitely use your support. He had to pay those filing fees. So markfordove.com/donate would be well appreciated. One more question we've got. Oops, it went away. But Super Steve asks, all right, what are your views on water issues and the Marvin Nichols Reservoir, don't know where that's at, and the San Antonio water system?
I'm not, I will confess, I'm not intimately familiar with the San Antonio water system. The Marvin Nichols Reservoir, I have been aware of the different reservoirs and the different aquifers. And water rights in Texas is something that is a very complex issue. And I will confess, I am not well versed on all the water issues in Texas. Water rights issues deal with not only runoff water, reservoir water, well water, subsurface water, aquifers, and they are complex issues, or can get complex, especially when dealing with large cities. And our cities are getting bigger and bigger, and our water supply is not necessarily super limited, but it's still expensive to get to.
Yeah, that was one I'm not familiar with that reservoir. Or I live right near San Antonio, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the SAWS San Antonio water system. But yeah, that's excellent. So I don't see another question popping up. Just wanted to mention these AMAs are probably something that we're going to do more of. And so if your question didn't get answered, we apologize. It's not like we were, we can answer them all and take them in order. We were trying to get a diverse number of them, and we were trying to get as many questions answered as possible. So we were trying to keep this brief. But I guess with that, then, since we don't see any more questions, I guess, Mark, do you want to take any more questions, or are we up against a hard stop here? What do you think?
I was under the impression that we were kind of up against, not a total hard stop, but I believe for the first one, I do want to thank everybody and thank everybody for their questions. Keep them coming. We will try to get to them in one way or another, whether it's at another AMA. I was informed, by the way, that this was Ask Me Anything. I thought it was Ask Mark Anything. But I was corrected that it. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for the questions, and we will be doing some more of this. I don't know exactly when. I will be getting with our team, and we will be doing some more. And thanks for joining us. I hope we didn't bore you to death, and I look forward to seeing all of you on the campaign trail.
Outstanding. Good night, everybody.